Q and Review, celebrating 40 years of audio production, welcomes you to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast, recorded from our studio in the Bishopbriggs Media Centre and by our volunteers working from home. Keep up to date with Q and Review news via our Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, or Instagram at Q and Review. That's @CUEANDREVIEW, or get in touch with us directly by emailing information@qandreview.com. That's INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling us on 0141 772 3979. Please like and share our podcast and give us constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, July 15. Former Rangers coach lands job at Liverpool. Report by Blair Meikle. Former Rangers goalkeeping coach Colin Stewart has landed a huge job at Liverpool. The Scot has been announced as part of Arne Slot's backroom staff at the Premier League Champions, where he will support head of first-team goalkeeping coaching Xabi Valero. Stewart spent 2 seasons coaching in the academy at Rangers, before 7 in the first-team environment, but left earlier this year when Philippe Clement was sacked. Interim boss Barry Ferguson brought in Alan McGregor to replace him. Russell Martin recently hired former Arsenal man Sal Bibbo as his new goalkeeping coach. Stewart joins former Ibrox boss Giovanni van Bronckhorst at Anfield after the Dutchman's appointment as a first-team coach. A statement on the Liverpool website reads, "The Scot links up with Arne Slot's backroom team after 9 years with Glasgow Rangers." His first 2 years with Rangers were spent at the helm of the club's academy goalkeeping programme, before being promoted to the role of first-team goalkeeper coach, in which he served for the past 7 years. Stewart, a former professional goalkeeper himself, also worked with the Scottish FA for more than a decade as a goalkeeping coach educator, delivering relevant courses across the country. Now he will support Xavi Valero, back at Liverpool as head of first-team goalkeeping coach, on a daily basis in working with the Reds' senior stoppers on and off the pitch. Additionally, Stewart will oversee the loan strategies of goalkeepers who are in the process of making the step up from youth level to senior experience, serving as a link between the men's squad, loan management team and under-21s group. Report by Blair Meikle. Evening Times Sport, July 15. Motherwell will not be rushed into Miller transfer exit. Report by Aidan Gilbride. Jens Berthel Askew has insisted Motherwell will not be rushed into selling Lennon Miller. Fresh reports indicated that Motherwell could be set to receive a bid for Miller within the week. But Askew said, "The market is lively, sometimes it is crazy, and sometimes clubs are waiting, or players are waiting, for the right move. That's the most important thing for me to say right now concerning Lennon. I know and I understand, and we appreciate all the interest there is around Lennon and his future, and Motherwell as a football club. But I think for us right now, it is time to say, let's look at it when something specific and concrete comes up, and when we are ready to inform. That's the last thing I will say now in terms of commenting on Lennon. And in general, when we have interesting players that might take the next step, we're not looking for fast and quick solutions. We are looking for the right solutions for the players and for the club long term. Sometimes things move fast. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. That's not always up to us to decide or to control. The transfer saga that has been brewing since Christmas looks set to end before the end of the summer window. The 18-year-old who captained his Motherwell side, earned 2 Scotland caps, and was crowned Young Player of the Year last season, has long been linked with a variety of destinations. Earlier in the summer, it looked likely that Parkhead might be the destination, in what appeared to be a possible repeat of Motherwell's transfer record for David Turnbull in 2020. Miller looks set to break that record, as the Lanarkshire side are looking for fees eclipsing £4 million. However, the longer the summer transfer window goes on, the less likely Glasgow will be his next stop, with Italian clubs taking more notice of the Scottish League after the success of Scott McTominay, Billy Gilmour and Lewis Ferguson. Miller could be the next in line for an Italian job. Como are the most recent team to be linked with the Motherwell skipper. In an interview with BBC's Sportsound, Miller's father, Lee, the former Aberdeen forward, said, "I think there will be a bid that comes in, if not this week, maybe next week." On the potential European move, he added, "Yeah, potentially. You look at Billy Gilmour, Lewis Ferguson, Scott McTominay doing their thing abroad. They are in Italy, and Max Johnson has done really well as well in Austria with Sturm Graz." Report by Aidan Gilbride. Evening Times Sport, July 15. Nick Rodger says, 25 years at the Open shows that time really does fly. About this time last year, I wrote a column celebrating my 25th Open in a working capacity. It turned out to be a load of cobblers, the statistic that is, not the column. Then again, anyway, I'd forgotten, you see, about the cancellation of the 2020 championship due to the COVID pandemic, so it was only 24. This week then is my actual silver jubilee, so one presumes that the good folk at the R&A have commissioned a limited edition range of commemorative tea towels, porcelain thimbles, and decorative hinged trinket boxes to mark the occasion. I'll have an amble over to the Royal Portrush merchandise tent to check out the shimmering wares later in the week. Part of this column was composed yesterday in the shadow of a wonderful, awe-inspiring edifice of maritime magnificence. Yes, that's right, the check-in terminal of the Stena Line ferry at Cairnryan. The Scottish golf writers went in 2 by 2. Well, we tried to do it in an orderly fashion, but because this correspondent was running late, the embarking process descended into a nautical nonsense that featured the kind of flustered bellows and tortured grunts that Noah probably had to deal with as he tried to shepherd the last few biblical beasts up his blooming gangplank. We made it though. It's going to be a busy old week here on the Antrim coast. Back in 2019, the last time the Open was staged at Portrush, the tickets for the championship days were gobbled up in the time it took you to say, "Tickets for the championship days have gone on sale." It was the first ever sold-out Open. That was not surprising, of course. Portrush had not staged the championship since 1951. It was a hugely significant moment for Northern Ireland after a troubled past. I always recall an Irish colleague observing the giddy scenes 6 years ago and writing, "When Darren Clarke steps to the tee at Royal Portrush at 6:35 a.m. and gets the Open underway, he will become the first Northern Irishman to fire a shot here and have it universally welcomed." The masses lapped it up. "It will be mayhem, but merry Irish mayhem, which is the best kind," said the late great Peter Allis, who played in the Open when it first came to this parish back in 1951. He was right. Here in 2025, there will be an additional 40,000 spectators flooding through the gates, with a total of 278,000 people expected over the course of the week. It will be the second highest attended Open in history, after the 290,000 souls who shoehorned themselves into St Andrews in 2022. I hope there are enough of my 25th anniversary dish cloots on sale for the masses to purchase as a keepsake. The infrastructure these days is as big and as bold as you would expect from a sporting and corporate beast that constantly grows arms and legs. A hierarchy has developed in terms of Open venues as the organisers look more favourably at hosts that can easily accommodate the 200,000 plus mark. That we are back at Portrush within just 6 years speaks volumes for the R&A's mantra of the bigger, the better. This emphasis on how many punters they can cram in gently elbows certain esteemed courses into the margins. That's a pity for some truly magnificent venues. To be honest, I find an Open almost too big for my liking, but maybe I'm just getting on in years. Each to their own, eh? In the build-up to the eagerly anticipated 2019 showpiece, I had a sit-down with a lovely gentleman called Ian Bamford, who was a young'un back in 1951 and went on to become an Irish amateur champion and a great cherished down of Royal Portrush Golf Club. I still remember queuing to watch a western at the cinema that week and was in touching distance of Di Reith and Norman von Nyder, reflected Bamford of a couple of well-kent golfers of ye day who were killing a bit of time. I'm not sure we'll see Rory McIlroy or Scotty Scheffler popping into the Portrush Playhouse tonight. The past is a different world. Noted Bamford. When Royal Portrush was founded in 1888, there were only 1,600 people in the town. There were 4 pubs and 4 churches. Given the volume of bodies in tune over the next few days, the queue to get a libation at the harbour bar will probably stretch to the Giant's Causeway. I may have better luck in the church. The final major of the men's season is upon us already, as the season hurtles by at a furious rate of knots. Regular readers, yes, there are some small pockets of loyal support, will know that I find the condensed nature of the global golf schedule a trifle unsatisfactory. When the claret jug is handed out on Sunday, it will be 9 months until the Masters. At least there's a Ryder Cup in September to fill part of this void. Once the prolonged wait for Augusta is over, the majors come at us thick and fast in a crash-bang-wallop configuration that does them something of a disservice in a jam-packed scene. There's barely a moment to draw breath. Come Sunday night, The men's majors will have passed in a flash again. As my 25 years at the Open prove, time really does fly. Now, where's my celebratory tea towel? Asks Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, July 16. Celtic cooperation agreement plans change. Report by Stephen McGowan. Celtic have held talks over a cooperation agreement with Scott Brown's Ayr United after a plan to pair up with Queen's Park stalled. The troubled Spiders are slashing costs ahead of Lord Willie Haughey and his company, City Facilities Management, withdrawing their financial backing next year. Previously spending a staggering £5.7 million in the Championship, Scotland's oldest senior club need to slash expenditure to around £1 million a year. With Queen's unable to commit to a long-term tie-up, Premiership champions Celtic have now held discussions with Ayr, managed by former Parkhead captain Brown, with midfielder Jude Bonner expected to be first to move to Somerset Park. The SFA have given clubs the green light to team up to boost the number of first-team opportunities for young Scottish players between the ages of 16 and 21. Recent figures from CIES Observatory show that St Mirren offered just 0.8% of their available first-team minutes to players aged 21 or under last season. Dundee had the highest figure in the SPFL Premiership with 24.8%. Under the new rules, up to 3 players can be placed on a cooperation list and allowed to move freely between the co-op club and parent club in order to increase their first-team experience. Aberdeen have confirmed agreements with League Two Elgin City and Kelty Hearts of League One. Defenders Dylan Ross and Jamie Mercer have joined City with Lewis Carroll, Joseph Teasdale and Cooper Mason heading to Fife. Director of Football Stephen Gunn claims the agreements create a clear pathway for promising young players to gain valuable senior football experience, learn from good professionals, and be better prepared for the demands of first-team football at Aberdeen. St Mirren will team up Dumbarton of League Two and Lowland League team Clydebank. Tarek McAvoy, Thomas Falconer and Theo McCormick have already joined Dumbarton, while Billy Hutchison has moved to Clydebank. St Mirren boss Stephen Robinson said, "I firmly believe in the loan system to develop our young players, and something that hindered that previously was not being able to bring them back at certain stages or leaving ourselves short in numbers. With the cooperation agreement, we are able to get them into men's football and develop under other coaches. Hopefully we can also help the coaches and the clubs they are going to. It will be a great benefit for both parties. All in all, I believe it's a brilliant way to develop young players in Scotland and does not compromise any young players coming back into the first team." Newly promoted League Two side East Kilbride have also agreed a deal with Hibs. Goalkeeper Freddie Owens and forward Dean Cleland have already moved to K Park. Rangers are expected to confirm a cooperation agreement with Championship side Raith Rovers. Report by Stephen McGowan. Evening Times Sport, July 16. Graham McGarry says, "FIFA have finally done it. I'm getting tired of football." I was reminded of an iconic scene from The Simpsons recently. Soon after I had capitulated in my self-imposed ban from watching the Club World Cup. Homer, having died and gone to hell, is sent to the ironic punishment division, where he is force-fed an endless supply of his favourite sweet treats, donuts, from a conveyor belt. Here I was, someone who loves football, and even depends upon it to make a living, feeling more than a little nauseous from having it crammed endlessly into my cake-hole. Unlike Homer, though, it turns out I didn't possess the insatiable appetite to much stomach being force-fed Gianni Infantino's gross, overblown spectacle. I know, no one was actually forcing me to watch it. I could have ignored it completely, as I actually did for most of the tournament. Whether it was morbid curiosity, the fact that I hadn't seen a game in a couple of weeks, or the FOMO, or another exhibition of PSG's slick football after their demolition of Real Madrid, I eventually decided to tune into the final, where the Qatar-backed Parisians were in fact blown off the park in the first half by those plucky underdogs Chelsea, whose squad was assembled for the measly sum of £1.4 billion. Even the £110 million that the Londoners banked from winning the thing only accounts for about a quarter of their spend in the last 12 months. Despite the gaudy glitz and glamour though, the half-time show, the thrones perched on high from where Infantino, Donald Trump, and their wives surveyed the scene like vultures greedily eyeing the carcass of a once great sport, the overriding feeling was one of apathy. Chelsea had won an invitational tournament in the USA, played out during the close season in baking heat. They were crowned world champions, even though some of the world's best clubs were not taking part, while amateur sides like Auckland City, beaten 10-0 by Bayern Munich, were there as a token gesture to the global nature of the tournament. Did anyone really care? For all the billion-dollar bluster, the tournament remains something of a curiosity rather than a must-see event. At best, it seems to occupy a status no greater than the UEFA Conference League, if that. It is the SPFL Trust Trophy of elite competitions. But over and above the whole dodgy premise and overblown extravaganza of this manufactured mishmash of a tournament, there was more to my indifference. It was just too much football, and too much club football specifically. The novelty of summer tournaments is, firstly, that they only take place once every 2 years, and secondly, that they feature national teams. By the end, despite one South American team, Fluminense, lasting until the semi-final stage, this was little more than a diluted version of the same teams we watch year on year, slugging it out for real in the Champions League. A tournament which itself has grown a little tired, despite the introduction of the expanded league phase. More games again. More important than the spectator fatigue, though, is the issue of player welfare. I am certainly no fan of Infantino and the direction in which he is dragging world football. But Sergio Marchi, president of FIFPro, a worldwide representative organisation with around 65,000 footballers in their membership, really let him have it this week. Comparing Infantino to Nero and describing the Club World Cup as a fiction, Marchi let rip. And he said, FIFPro cannot fail to point out with absolute clarity that this competition hides a dangerous disconnect with the true reality experienced by most footballers around the world. What was presented as a global celebration of football was nothing more than a fiction created by FIFA, promoted by its president, without dialogue, sensitivity and respect for those who sustain the game with their daily efforts. A grandiloquent staging, inevitably reminiscent of the bread and circuses of Nero's Rome, entertainment for the masses, while behind the scenes inequality, precariousness, and the lack of protection for the true protagonists deepen. Ouch! FIFPro and other bodies such as the English Premier League are taking legal action against FIFA for the lack of communication before staging this tournament, and in an effort to protect those protagonists, the players have now struck an agreement with the governing body that there must be at least 72 hours of rest between matches, and that players should have a rest period, a holiday, of at least 21 days at the end of each season. A study conducted on FIFPro's behalf suggested players should have at least 8 weeks of rest between seasons, but I guess it's a start. For many reasons, it is essential for the future of the game that there's an acceptance within FIFA that it might sometimes actually be okay if there is no top-level football to relentlessly feast upon. For the players, endless seasons not only increase the risk of injury, but fatigue also dilutes the quality of the product for spectators. Players are reluctant at times to speak out over such issues, wary of being criticised for complaining when they are so abundantly remunerated. But the likes of Real Madrid goalkeeper Thibaut Courtois have broken cover over their experiences in the United States this summer, and the persistence with afternoon kick-off times when temperatures are at their peak. Courtois said, "It is warm, and it is not easy to play. If the games were played in the evening, it would be better for the spectacle." All of this raises concerns about the staging of the World Cup in the Americas next summer. In true Infantino style, such piffling details such as the players were not factored in when deciding to plough ahead with his plan to expand the tournament to 48 teams, and with 104 games to pack into 39 days, you can probably take a decent guess as to whether commercial broadcasting interests will win out or concerns over player welfare. Also, the only way for the top clubs to cope with the modern schedule is to hoard players, and so the gap between the rich and the rest increases further. World champions Chelsea, for instance, currently have a first-team squad of 44 players, almost as much as Motherwell last season. And speaking of the humbler teams who make up the earthlier delights presented to us here in Scotland, most of them are already back in action in the League Cup group stage. It might just be me as I advance into middle age and grow ever more wistful for those long summers without football, stretches that may have seemed interminable at the time, but made the start of each season an eagerly anticipated event after many weeks, if not months, of being starved of action. But this year, it barely feels like there's been a close season at all. I don't know if I'll ever reach a point where I truly lose my appetite for football, but increasingly I'm starting to come round to the notion, unlike our old pals Homer and Gianni, that you can have too much of a good thing, says Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, July 16. Scotland discover Denmark allocation in new tartan army blow. Report by Mark Walker. Scotland fans have been handed an allocation of just 1,740 tickets for the opening World Cup qualifier in Denmark, and they will have to fork out a hefty £47 per brief. Steve Clarke's side will have to cram in 6 qualifiers between September and November in their bid to reach the World Cup for the first time since 1998. They have a very difficult start against top seeds Denmark in Copenhagen on September 5. And the SFA have been allocated just 1,740 tickets for the opening game at the 51,000 capacity Parken Stadium at £47 each. It means thousands of Tartan Army fans will miss out on the showdown after the Danes offered the paltry allocation for the game. It is the latest blow for Scotland supporters after UEFA confirmed last month that the next game against Belarus will be played in the neutral venue of the western Hungarian outpost of Zalaegerszeg, and the game will be played behind closed doors due to sanctions taken against Belarus 3 years ago by European football's governing body because of their support of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, July 16. Scotland's McKenna tops Dinamo Zagreb endorsement after big welcome. Report by Blair Meikle. Scotland defender Scott McKenna was personally welcomed to his new club Dinamo Zagreb by Croatian legend and club chairman Zvonimir Boban ahead of his surprise move to the Balkans, and he has been tipped to be a huge success at the club by his former colleague at Las Palmas, the former Dinamo Zagreb keeper Dinko Horkas. The ex-Aberdeen and Nottingham Forest star left the relegated La Liga side after they went down because of a clause in his contract. He has opted to sign for Dinamo, and he was met at Zagreb airport by ex-AC Milan Champions League winner Boban, who is now chairman of the club. And former teammate Horkas has backed McKenna to be an instant success and said, "I think signing for Dinamo will be one of their biggest signings ever. He will be a fantastic reinforcement for the club. I became good friends with Scott last season. He's a great guy with an exceptional character. As for his playing qualities, he is clearly an aggressive defender who is strong in the air. He is technically proficient and comfortable with the ball at his feet also. That will be good for Dinamo, because they like to play the ball out. Scott had a clause that he was a free agent if we were relegated. He clearly received a great deal of interest and called me when Dinamo approached him. Dinamo is my club, and so I obviously told him to sign. He was interested in Zagreb as a city because of his family circumstances, and he was clearly pleased when I explained to him all the living conditions offered in the city. I told him he would not find a better place to live. He had several options because he played in the top divisions in England and Spain, and the fact he's chosen Dinamo is great for the club and shows their ambition. Report by Blair Meikle. Evening Times Sport, July 17. An Open Championship Diary from Portrush. Report by Nick Rodger. There are always some ornithological observations at an Open. Birdies here, eagles there, some seagulls shoot everywhere. To combat those pesky Portrush gulls, the championship organisers have again called on the services of a team of hawks to scare the blighters off. Gulls can have an aggressive nature for food, said one of the falconry experts. He has obviously not watched the golf writers attack the breakfast buffet in the media centre canteen. The pest control company in charge of these birds is called Clear Skies. As for those aforementioned scribblers swooping on the fry-ups, well, after the glass-clinking shindig of the Association of Golf Writers' annual dinner the previous night, there were not many clear heats. Lights, camera, action. The Open is an all-singing, all-dancing production these days. This week, the broadcast is being enhanced by the trailblazing use of SpiderCam, which will provide spectacular aerial views from above Portrush's 18th. SpiderCam operates with 4 motorized winches positioned at each corner at the base of the covered area, each of which controls a Kevlar cable connected to a gyro-stabilized dolly. By controlling the winding and unwinding of the cables, the system allows the dolly to reach any position in the 3-dimensional space. It sounds a bit like the elaborate contraption used to haul the diarist out of bed after a heavy night at that golf writer's knees up. The AGW dinner is a lavish do that would make the grand Tudor banquets of yore look like a poke of chips at pub closing time. One of the guests at the bash was the legendary Indian cricket all-rounder Kapil Dev. The 66-year-old looked resplendent in his finery, which is more than can be said of the diarist, whose rumpled shirt had more creases than Lord's, says Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, July 17. Blairgowrie Amateur set for Open debut. Report by Nick Roger. In the 6 years since the Open was last held at Royal Portrush, Conor Graham has packed so much into his young career, the Blairgowrie teenager probably has to pay an excess baggage charge. Back in 2019, Graham was just 12 and lined up alongside his dad Stuart and big brother Gregor in the qualifying rounds for the Scottish Amateur Championship at Crail. Said Graham with a smile, "I was the only one to miss the cut out of the 3 of us, but I was only 12, so I had an excuse." Here in 2025, Graham is gearing up for an Open Championship debut. Over the past few seasons, the 18-year-old has won the Scottish Amateur Open Stroke Play Championship and the Junior Open. He has helped Europe win the Junior Ryder Cup, and he became the youngest player at 16 to compete in the Walker Cup. "I would say I've come a long way," added the young Scot, as he reflected on the kind of rapid rise that would give most folks the bends. An Open outing will be another significant milestone. Having earned his place in the final men's major of the year the hard way, he stood firm in a play-off at final qualifying at Dundonald to nab a tee time. Graham is ready to embrace his major moment. And he said, "There's a lot to absorb, of course. The stands are vast, the crowds are huge, and building every day. The best players in the world are parading about, and all the Scottish golf writers are lurking in the dunes looking for a quick chinwag. I'm just trying to take it in," added Graham, the first Blairgowrie member to play in the Open since Bradley Neal teed up in the 2014 showpiece as the amateur champion. "It is important to manage everything. Some people could come here and think, It's a major week, so I'll have to try to hit as many balls as I can and try to play as much as I can. But it's a long week, as you get here early, so you have to save your energy for the tournament and the golf test. It's all very different to what I'm normally playing in week out. The course is very tough. It's very demanding off the tee. It's difficult to get away with a lot of stuff, and you have to be really good off the tee to be able to score well. But it's really cool to be here. Who doesn't want to play an Open? It's the one everybody wants to be in. Graham, who has just completed his first year at United States College in Texas, is a member of the Paul Lawrie Foundation. Lawrie, of course, came through a final qualifier at Downfield back in 1999 and went on to lift the claret jug at Carnoustie a few days later. "That is definitely an inspiration for me," said Graham. There is nothing wrong with aiming high in this game. Since the college term finished, Graham has packed a fair bit in. He played in the Palmer Cup, then returned to this side of the pond for the Amateur Championship, the European Amateur Championship, and the Open Final Qualifier. It has been a hectic spell, but Graham has energised himself for his Open experience with a few days off last week. Well, in a fashion. The clubs are never far from his grasp, and he said, "I've not got much else to do other than play golf, so I always do a little bit of practice to keep things sharp. If I wasn't playing golf, then I'd be lying on the couch just watching some TV." Graham has some Caledonian company this week in the shape of fellow amateur Cameron Adam, Robert McIntyre, and Daniel Young. It is 10 years now since Young lost to McIntyre in the final of the Scottish Amateur Championship at Muirfield. In that time, McIntyre has enjoyed the kind of lift-off you would get with a vessel of space exploration, and the Oban lefty is now 14th in the world. Young, meanwhile, is plotting his own route up the golfing order, and back-to-back top-three finishes on the second-tier Hotel Planner Tour recently bolstered the Perth man's push for promotion to the main DP World Tour. An Open debut, he also came through the qualifier at Dundonald, and the chance to reacquaint himself with McIntyre has been a nice addition to the diary. "There will be no hard feelings if I can turn around my career into what McIntyre has done so far," chuckled Young, as he reflected on that Scottish Amateur showdown in 2015. "Golf is ruthless. Everybody's where they are for a reason. I'm on the Hotel Planner Tour for a reason. Bob's where he is for a reason. You've just got to work your way up the ladder." "An Open Championship is a nice rung on that climb," says Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport. July 17. Rangers likely to miss out on target. Report by Blair Meikle. Rangers look set to miss out on transfer target Metino, with Basel poised to clinch a permanent deal. The Ibrox men had been looking to snap up the £5 million rated attacking midfielder as part of Russell Martin's rebuild. Metino had helped Basel to a Swiss Cup double this season, but had headed back to French outfit Troyes, where he was still contracted. Rangers had the 22-year-old on their radar for some time, and new owners 49ers Enterprises were also well aware of him before they swept into power in Govan. They had reportedly stepped up their interest, but faced competition from the Swiss side, who vowed to do everything they could to bring him back. Troyes paid £4 million to land Metino from Fluminense in 2021, but he has since had 3 different loan spells and looks certain to leave them this season permanently. Fabrizio Romano has now confirmed that will be the case, but it will be to Switzerland he is heading once again. The transfers expert said Basel agree permanent deal to signing Mattino from Citigroup as new midfielder. The player will be in Switzerland today for medical tests and contract signings. Meanwhile, Rangers' attempts to sign goalkeeper Carol Rushworth are said to have reached a roadblock. Russell Martin would like another goalkeeping option and was looking to secure a loan deal for a Brighton man. The pair worked together at Swansea and would fit in with the manager's policy so far of bringing in players he knows well from the English market. But it is reported that any deal is off as it stands. It is claimed the 32-year-old is poised to sign a new deal with the Seagulls after spending part of last season on loan at Hull City, but not really featuring. He had interest in Union Saint-Gilloise, where Brighton owner Tony Bloom is also involved, and at Coventry City. It means Martin will have to look elsewhere for competition for Jack Butland and Liam Kelly. Butland was displaced by the former Motherwell man last season after several high-profile errors. The Englishman had previously been described by Philippe Clement as the only member of the squad not for sale, but his status has since diminished. Speaking on the goalkeeping situation recently, the manager admitted 3 was the magic number for a club the size of Rangers and said, "I think you need to have 2 good goalkeepers, ideally 3 at a club like this. So I think it's the same as any position. We'll keep assessing what they can do, what they cannot do. We have 2 good goalkeepers, we are fortunate with that. But if there's someone who is desperate to play here, and we think can help us, it's the same at any position. As long as it doesn't affect other things in the balance of the squad, then we'll always look at it. But at the moment, I have been happy with these 2 players." Meanwhile, Rangers are unlikely to have Conor Godey added to their squad in time to face Panathinaikos. The Ibrox club have been working on a deal to bring the 32-year-old central defender in from Leicester, but it has been dragging on. The English cap is believed to want the move and had been keen to sit out his club's pre-season training camp in Austria to be able to accelerate it. However, it is now being reported that Leicester have failed to grant him his wish and he has had to travel. The English Championship side are said to have opened talks with a potential replacement for Cody, but the former Everton loanee remains under contract and so has been obligated to travel with new manager Marty Cifuentes and his squad. Evening Times Sport, July 17. Gordon Strachan predicts Brendan Rodgers' exit. Report by Blair Meikle. Gordon Strachan has predicted Brendan Rodgers will be moving on from Celtic next summer. 6 years after leaving the club for Leicester, the 3-year deal the Northern Irishman signed upon returning has almost been and gone. Out of contract next year, he revealed last week that conversations have taken place with majority shareholder Dermot Desmond and other key figures at Parkhead. However, he was not giving anything away on how those went or how keen he is to sign a new deal. Strachan has been in the same position and would quit the club after 4 years in charge. He points out 3 years is around the typical lifespan of a Celtic manager and explained varying reasons for that. and that is why he does not expect to see Rodgers in the dugout for the 26-27 campaign. The former Scotland boss told Online Betting Guide, "I would not like a lifetime deal. Then no matter what happens, you've got this deal. I don't think that's got to happen, because both parties in this are not stupid. They know that even Brendan, and if you look at most managers, they spend about 3 years, and then for most Celtic managers, they would like to go on somewhere else. It's not the club's fantastic. Sometimes the fact that you are repeating yourself against the same teams week in, week out on plastic pitches, it is not easy to keep momentum going. You're going and playing in front of people with a small stadium, plastic pitches. There's no easy repetitiveness with the media. You're literally saying the same thing every week. The media are asking the same questions every week, dealing with the same thing. The bonuses managers get at Celtic, you'll get European games, which is a great bonus for any manager. So that's what will entice you. But there's a problem of keeping that momentum going over 3, 4 or a 5-year period. It is not easy to motivate yourself week in, week out. Sometimes it is nice to have a refresher and go somewhere else. It is difficult for any Celtic manager to last more than 3 years. So I don't think it's wise. I don't think that conversation will take place on a long-term contract. Report by Blair Meikle. Evening Times Sport, July 18. Falkirk / away ticket allocation amid Premiership return. Report by Mark Walker. Falkirk have confirmed they will slash the away allocation of visiting fans to less than 750 for their return to the top flight. The Bairns are back in the Premiership after winning 2 promotions in a row and kick off their new campaign with a home game against Dundee United next month. But after massive interest from their own supporters, who have snapped up 5,700 season tickets in the 3-sided 7,937 capacity Falkirk Stadium, they have announced they will restrict away allocations this season to just 749. And they have become the latest club to cut away support in a growing trend in the Premiership. They stated, visiting supporters will receive 749 tickets located in sections E, F and part of section D in the North Stand. Tickets will be sold through the away club. Hearts announced last season that all away fans will receive just 650 tickets, except Hibs, who received 3,600 for the Edinburgh Derby. Aberdeen also slashed the allocation for Hibs to just 792 for their Pittodrie clash after the split last term, and Hibs reduced visiting fans to 1,500 for their final 2 games of the season against Dundee United and Rangers. And of course Celtic and Rangers took until last season to finally allow away fans into their stadiums for the Old Firm derbies for the first time in 2 years, with both clubs allocating around 4% of their stadium to visiting supporters. Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, July 18. Craig Fowler says, Livingston prove Premiership playoffs are not an issue. In gaining promotion to this season's top flight, Livingston became the only multiple winner of the Scottish Premiership playoff to do so from the lower division. The 24-25 iteration of the Lions were the 4th side to haul themselves up from the second tier since the playoffs were reintroduced ahead of the 13-14 campaign. Hamilton Accies were famously the first winner, as they overturned a 2-0 first-leg deficit in the maiden final to relegate Hibs in front of a hilariously mutinous Easter Road. 4 years later, Livingston got their first triumph, defeating Partick Thistle across 2 legs, before Dundee did likewise by swapping places with Kilmarnock after a dominant victory across 180 minutes in 2021. The Championship team has now emerged victorious in a third of the 12 finals there have been in 13 seasons. A reminder that the 2020 final did not take place due to COVID ending the campaign early. That is especially impressive when you consider that it is commonly accepted among Scottish football fans that the playoffs are heavily weighted in favour of the Premiership team. In order to win promotion to the top flight, the team that finishes second in the Championship needs to overcome a 2-legged semi-final before the 2-legged final, whereas the Premiership side finishing in 11th just go straight into the final. It is even tougher for those finishing in 3rd or 4th, as they have to play another 2-legged encounter before advancing to the semi-finals. 6 matches required to make it to the promised land. That's just too much, and surely a massive disadvantage on the team trying to get their rewards for a fine season, challenging at the right end of the table. But is it so much of an advantage? When you examine things a bit closer, it's not quite as harsh on the Championship clubs as it's made out to be. Let's take Livingston as an example. On April 18, 5 weeks before the playoff final, Livingston hosted Ayr United, while Ross County, their eventual opponents, had a free weekend along with the rest of the Premiership clubs not involved in the Scottish Cup semi-finals. After that game, County had 5 games to play before the 2 sides met each other. Livingston only had 4. So how's that? Well, the Championship wraps up a few weeks before the end of the Premiership season. So when Livingston's league campaign ended on May 2, County still had 3 games to play. Actually 4, but we'll not count their meeting with Hearts, as it took place less than 24 hours after Livingston's last match. You could dismiss this by arguing that the second-place side in the Championship have tougher fixtures to navigate, seeing as they need to win through a pair of cup ties, essentially, while also getting forced into a midweek weekend rotation, which is tougher on the players, as they don't get preferred recovery time on already aching legs. But again, this isn't all that different from what the Premiership team faces. In each of the last 4 seasons, the penultimate round of fixtures has been held in the midweek before the final weekend. So when the Championship side, finishing second, are beginning their midweek to weekend rotation, so are the Premiership opponents. Now, there is a disadvantage for the teams competing in the semi-finals because they have to play 2 further games. That's 1 more than the top-flight side within the larger time frame, but another midweek weekend slog in a more condensed period. In fact, no team finishing in 3rd or 4th has ever managed to win the playoff final, with Rangers, Dundee United, Inverness and Partick Thistle all losing their encounters. Of those games mentioned, Rangers suffered the biggest thumping at the hands of their opposition. Nobody is going to claim it was unfair on Lee McCulloch Chris Boyd, Haris Vukic and company. Two of the other ties above even went as far as penalties. The last to do so, Partick Thistle, did not chuck away the lead against Ross County due to tiredness. Sure, it may have played a small factor in them relinquishing their 3-0 aggregate lead late in the second half. But having spoken to Brian Graham about it, this writer knows the players don't excuse it with tired legs, but instead a lack of mental focus at a key juncture. Besides, they were the better team in extra time. It makes perfect sense for there to be a greater incentive to finish second rather than fourth for those seeking to win promotion. They could have it mirror the playoffs in the lower league, with 11th playing fourth and second facing third before the winners meet in the final. But with the leagues finishing at different times, that is far from ideal. You could even have a debate as to which side would be disadvantaged the most. The Premiership team for having to play on for an extra 3 weeks while their opponents rest, or the lower league outfits for being forced out of their rhythm and having to come into the playoff games cold. It doesn't take much for your average football fan to follow the crowd, probably because that's what they spend a significant portion of their life doing. Football is a means of finding community and feeling a part of something. We also do not tend to go for things that are beyond basic explanation. Team A plays Team B. Whoever scores more wins. It's all very easy to follow and agreeable. We start to become dismissive when things are complicated, and it feels like one of those other daft sports. Having to play one or two-leg ties before facing a team that did not have to play any until the two-leg tie that will decide promotion and relegation. It's not the most complex scenario, but it's got enough convolution to make the eyes naturally roll. Furthermore, it is something which was adopted and kept in place by the SPL and Chief Executive Neil Doncaster, so it is instinctively viewed as a mess without further inspection required. But the reality is that there are plenty of problems in Scottish football, but the setup of the Premiership playoffs is not one of them, says Craig Fowler.
From the Glasgow Times, Sunday the 20th of July 2025, from the sports section. Brendan Rodgers left in awe by incredible Newcastle moment. Report by Martin McMillan. Celtic boss Brendan Rodgers was left in awe by something absolutely incredible during his side's crushing victory over Newcastle United. The Hoops put on an impressive display, securing a 4-0 win with 2 goals in each half. Aaron Engels, Johnny Kenny, Yang and Liam Scales found the net, providing plenty of optimism for the season ahead. Rodgers was particularly impressed by the support within the 50,000 strong crowd. He said, "It's great for a club like Newcastle to come here. You've seen their support. It was absolutely incredible, which made for a great atmosphere in the stadium with nearly 50,000 here." Despite the heavy defeat, Rodgers believes Eddie Howe's team will be absolutely fine once the competitive season begins. He added, "I primarily focus on my own team, but 2 weeks ahead you start that a little bit earlier. Newcastle will get there. They're obviously building up. But we're still playing against really top players who, if they're playing 245s, will certainly be at a good level for 45 minutes or want to be." Newcastle manager Eddie Howe admitted that the match against Celtic might have come too soon for his squad, who are still in the early stages of their pre-season. He said, "We take a load from that. That was a really good test for us. This was a test that maybe came a little bit too early for us. We've had a long week in Austria. Not making excuses by the way, but the lads came into the game jaded slightly. It was a great workout for us. I think Celtic played really well. That article was written by Martin McMillan and read by Ian. From the Glasgow Times, Sunday the 20th of July 2025, from the sports section. Ex-Rangers star set for Wrexham after agreeing terms. Report by Blair Meikle. Former Rangers midfielder Josh Windass looks set to sign for Wrexham after reportedly agreeing terms. The Englishman, 31, became a free agent having had his Sheffield Wednesday deal ripped up after financial issues at the club led to players not being paid on time. There had been suggestions in some quarters a return to Ibrox could be on the cards, and he has had plenty of other interest too after 13 goals in the Championship last season. Give Me Sport are now reporting Windass is set to join second-tier New Boys Wrexham, backed by Hollywood owners Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. A medical is set to be booked for Monday, with personal terms agreed with the player. Norwich City and Coventry City are believed to still be keen on trying to hijack the deal, but the move to the racecourse still looks to be on. Wrexham are currently on a pre-season tour of Australia and New Zealand, but Windass held talks with manager Phil Parkinson remotely over the last 72 hours. On top of Norwich and Coventry, the Red Dragons have beaten off interest from Leicester City and Derby County. Wrexham are not hanging about as they attempt to strengthen for the Championship, already adding former Rangers and Livingston striker Ryan Hardy and goalkeeper Danny Ward, as well as breaking their transfer record with the £4 million addition of left-back Liberato Cacace from Empoli. The article was written by Blair Meikle and read by Ian McKenna. From the Glasgow Times, Sunday the 20th of July 2025, from the sports section. Leicester boss reacts to Rangers-linked Cody's friendly display. Report by Martin McMillan. New Leicester City boss Martin Cifuentes has praised Connor Cody's performance in a friendly amid links to Rangers. The central defender captained his side against Zala Eggerszeg, where Jordan Ayew's second-half goals secured a win. Cody, who is under contract with City until 2026, has been linked with a move to Rangers this summer. Following the 1-0 victory, Cifuentes spoke on Cody's showing. He said, "There are a lot of positive things we can bring with us. There are a lot of things to improve, which is normal at this stage. I like the intention, the attitude and the application of the team. I like that we wanted to be from day one, a team that is dominant and wants to use possession to attack. The timing of the movement and the rotations, everything will come." Cifuentes also commented on the balance within the squad. He added, "I like as well to see the young boys. I'm very happy with what I see from Jeremy, from Lewis, from Evans, from all the young guys. And, as well, the application of the experienced players. I liked what I saw from Connor, from Yannick. It's an interesting mix." That article was written by Martin McMillan. From the Glasgow Times, Sunday the 20th of July 2025, from the sports section. Lille struggling in Egeman pursuit as Dutch giants enter the race. Report by Martin McMillan. Lille are reportedly struggling in negotiations to sell Hamza Egeman from Rangers. The French club are said to have a personal agreement with the forward, but the deal remains on hold according to Belgian journalist Sacha Tavoliere. He also claims that back-to-back Dutch champions Feyenoord now have entered the race to sign Egeman, with Premier League side Everton and Udinese of Serie A also making inquiries. It remains to be seen where the Moroccan's future lies next season. He only joined Rangers last summer from FAR Rabat in his homeland, and has since gone on to score 16 goals and register 3 assists in light blue. Despite increasing speculation over his future, Egeman was included in Rangers' 25-man Champions League squad for their upcoming second-round qualifier against Panathinaikos. Rangers squad versus Panathinaikos. Goalkeepers: Jack Butland, Liam Kelly, Kieran Wright. Defenders: Max Aarons, Nasser Djiga, Emmanuel Fernandez, Leon King, John Suter, James Tavernier, Yefte. Midfielders: Thilo Asgard, Nedim Bajrami, Connor Barron, Lyle Cameron, Oscar Cortez, Mohamed Diomande, Kieran Dowell, Robbie Fraser, Diede Gassama, Nico Raskin, Joe Rothwell. Forwards: Cyril Dessers, Josh Gentles, Hamza Igaman, Danilo. That report was written by Martin McMillan and read by me, Ian. From the Glasgow Times, Sunday the 20th of July 2025, from the sports section. Tierney reveals emotional reaction upon Celtic Park return. Report by Martin McMillan. Kieran Tierney has shared how emotional he felt returning to Celtic Park. The left-back made his first appearance at Parkhead in 6 years on Saturday, coming onto a standing ovation in the 56th minute during his side's friendly win over Newcastle United. He quickly got back into the swing of things, assisting the last of Celtic's goals in the 4-0 victory. Tierney beat his man on the left before delivering a cross for Liam Scales to score. Former Celtic players Moussa Dembele and Scott Sinclair reacted to his comeback on Instagram. Dembele posted a heart eyes emoji, while Sinclair responded with 2 raised hands. Eric Sviatchenko simply wrote, "Goosebumps." After the match, Tierney admitted to feeling emotional when he came off the bench. He told Celtic TV, "I didn't know what to expect. That was just brilliant. I was quite emotional actually going to the park like that. A great day for me." Reflecting on the match, he added, "There, Newcastle, a good team. It just shows the quality we've got. When we play like that, we can give anyone a game. And the goals we scored were brilliant today." That article was written by Martin McMillan.
Evening Times Sport, July 21. Nick Rodger reports on Scheffler easing to 4-shot win in the Open. A procession to a coronation, a march to another major, a canter to a claret jug. Whatever you want to call it, Scotty Scheffler produced it at Royal Portrush to win the 153rd Open in a quite emphatic fashion. It was never in doubt, really, when the world number one extended his healthy overnight lead to 5 shots after just 2 holes of the final round. The fat lady was packing up her microphone, flinging her crumpled song sheet into the bin, and heading off to find another gig. Gary Harvey, the Scot who chisels the champion's name onto golf's most cherished clump of silverware, was probably on a Stena Line ferry back across the water by the time Scheffler got through the 5th. Job done. Even the rare stumble of a double bogey on the 8th, he had to give the rest something to cling to, didn't he? Was no great cause for concern. Normal service was swiftly resumed. In typical Scheffler fashion, he bounced back with purposeful aplomb and birdied the very next hole. You half expected the R&A High Hedians to wheel a trestle table out to the 9th green and do the prize-giving ceremony there. In the end, the unflappable, relentless 29-year-old signed off with a 3 under 68, his 4th sub-70 round of the week, for a 17 under aggregate of 267, and won by 4 shots from his American compatriot Harris English. To be truthful, the margin of victory felt like it should have been greater, such was Scheffler's majesty and his magnificent front running. At one stage early on in the final round, he had extended his advantage to a whopping 8 shots. In fact, he was so far ahead of the rest, he may as well have been playing in the 154th Open at Royal Birkdale. As Scheffler ambled off into the distance at the top of the leaderboard, the golf writers were eagerly leafing through the record books and wondering if he would beat the 13-shot winning record set by old Tom Morris at Prestwick way back in 1862. From just 24 major starts as a professional, Scheffler has 4 major titles on his CV. With 2 Masters green jackets, a United States PGA crown and now the Open, he is already 3/4 of the way to the career Grand Slam. It's a remarkable career. In the eyes of Xander Schauffele, the defending Open champion who shared 7th with Rory McIlroy and Open's Robert McIntyre, Scheffler is the king of all he surveys. I don't think we thought the golfing world would see someone as dominant as Tiger Woods come through so soon, and here's Scotty sort of taking that throne of dominance, said Schauffele, of a man who has racked up 14 wins in his last 38 events. The praise and plaudits may be tumbling forth, but Scheffler himself is not a fan of comparisons with the 15-time major winner Woods. I think they're a bit silly, said the new champion, who is only the 2nd world number 1 after Woods to win the Open. Tiger won, 15 majors? This is my 4th. I think Tiger stands alone in the game of golf. He was inspirational for me growing up, but I don't focus on that kind of stuff. In his pre-championship press conference earlier in the week, Scheffler delved deep into the pointlessness of golf in the grand scheme of life, when he said, "Why do I want to win the Open Championship so badly? I don't know, because if I win, it's going to be awesome for 2 minutes." Surely this was awesome for more than 120 seconds. At the end of the day, there's more to life than playing golf, said Scheffler, whose faith and his family remain his driving forces. I'm pretty excited to go home and celebrate this one, but we're going to start all over in Memphis, the next event, and we're all back to even par. The show goes on. Take Scheffler out of the equation, and this would have been a thrilling Open Sunday show, as the rest jockeyed for position on a bunched-up leaderboard. The charging Bryson DeChambeau certainly generated a buzz, with a terrific 7 under 64 to barge into a tie for 10th. As salvage operations go, this was up there with the raising of the Mary Rose. After the wreck of his first-round 78 on Thursday, it looked like the American would sink without trace. By Sunday afternoon, the former United States Open champion was shipshape and Bristol fashion. Hats off to him. The 31-year-old basically gave Scheffler a 10-shot head start after that opening day of toil and trouble. DeChambeau was 16 under for his next 54 holes, the second lowest 3-round tally in Open history. It would have done well at a live event. McIlroy, 6 shots behind Scheffler heading into the closing round, has spent the evening before watching Oppenheimer, the film about the fellow who oversaw the development of the nuclear bomb. He was probably thinking that an atomic strike was the only way to stop Scheffler. McIlroy, urged on by a huge home support, could not conjure the fireworks the galleries crave, and his 69, which featured a deflating double bogey on the 10th, left him 7 shots behind the winner. "I know I wasn't the fan favourite today," said Scheffler with a smile, as he snuffed out hopes of a McIlroy fairy tale with another ruthless display. English, who was also second to Scheffler in this year's PGA Championship, closed with a 66 to take another runners-up spot, while Chris Gotterup, fresh from his Scottish Open win a week earlier, completed a brilliant Open debut with a 67 and finished third. Wyndham Clark's 65 vaulted him into a share of fourth with Matthew Fitzpatrick and Heo Tong Lee. Like everybody else though, they were footnotes in the Scheffler success story. "Scotty's in a league of his own right now," said DeChambeau. "I played with him a lot in college, and he was not that good, so he's figured out a lot of stuff since then." "He certainly has," says Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, July 21. The Eagle, an Open Championship diary from Nick Roger. There is a heck of a lot of money swirling around during Open Week. Not that the diarist sees any of it, of course. "Less is more," said the sports editor, as he counted out my wages in IOUs. The Live Golf lot have been whooping it up in Portrush over the last few days and hosted a lavish after-dark private party in the town's well-kent nightclub Kelly's. Amid the feasting and glass clinking, the award-winning rock band Kasabian played an intimate gig for the revellers and were reportedly paid a whopping £250,000 to belt out a few hits. Upon discovering that, the diarist was convinced he had heard a tale that Irish crooner Daniel O'Donnell was once offered a similar figure not to sing. It's all about being eco-friendly at the Open these days. The R&A's Green Links programme has been driving innovation and action in sustainability at the championship since 2016. Yes, but this diary is utterly unsustainable, spluttered the sports editor as he menacingly polished his recycled dueling pistol. Through the Green Links initiative, the Open continues to be powered by solar panels and carefully sourced biofuel derived from waste product. It's good to see the diarist's daily rubbish being put to good use. As part of this ongoing green push, there's not much paper fluttering around the press centre these days. Not that long ago, everything from draw sheets, interview transcripts, player guides, bulletins, weather forecasts, or disciplinary procedures brought against golf writers were piled into trays as the media team printed off more odds and ends than Caxton. The Open is going paperless. This diary, meanwhile, continues to be pointless. See you at Birkdale in 2026, says Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, July 21. Robert McIntyre finishes tied 7th and still aims for win at the Open. Report by Nick Roger. Another major championship. Another Saltire plonked in the upper reaches of the leaderboard. We're getting used to this, aren't we? After his thrilling second-place finish in the United States Open at Oakmont last month, Robert McIntyre backed it up with a sturdy top 10 in the Open at Royal Portrush. Trying to catch Scotty Scheffler, of course, was going to be a mighty task, akin to attempting to land a shoal of cod with a sieve. But McIntyre dug in with his usual spirit and set about finishing as high as he could. A back nine rally for a 4 under 67 hoisted the Open lead into a 10 under aggregate. When it was all done and dusted, McIntyre had earned a share of 7th place. Back in 2019, McIntyre marked his major championship debut here at Portrush with a share of 6th. Since then, the Scot has played in 18 more majors and has added 4 more top 10s. It continues to be an impressive body of work. I feel like it's a matter of time, said McIntyre, about his prospects of becoming the first Scottish men's major champion since Paul Lawrie won the Open back in 1999. The major championships have hurtled by in a flash, and McIntyre has 9 months to wait until the Masters at Augusta tease things off again in April. It's quick, especially the PGA Tour season, said McIntyre, of a condensed packed schedule that would make a tin of sardines look like a vast acreage of space. I think it's too jammed. I feel the schedule that I've been playing for the last 3 months has been absolutely hectic. I feel I've hardly had a break, but that's part of the job. When you're playing well, you just keep going. McIntyre certainly got going as the holes began to run out at Portrush. Level par through the 11th, the Ryder Cup player upped the ante coming home and mounted a bold offensive. He birdied the 12th, then chipped in from off the 14th green for another gain. The punch of the 5th showed he was enjoying the charge. A raking birdie putt from over 25 feet on the 15th bolstered the assault, and he came within a whisker of an eagle on the 17th. I was frustrated early on, and the bogey on the 4th was stupid, he said, as he reflected on his round. It was sloppy, and I was being too aggressive to a pin that you just could not miss on one side. But I just had to keep saying to myself, stay patient. There's a good finish there if I can stay calm and just pick up the shots where I can. This is my favourite open venue, McIntyre added, of this happy hunting ground. I love the golf course. I love the place. The support has been unbelievable. It's not far from home as the crow flies, and it's a shame it's not here every year. Look, I was coming out here trying to win the golf tournament, but I knew I was too far back going into today, so it was just a case of jockeying for position. This place, statistically, is a golf course that I should have been sharper on. My wedge play was really poor this week. There are certain holes this week that were vital, and I played them poorly. To really contend, I just was not sharp enough on those holes. And then on the really tough holes, that's where the drop shots came and ultimately cost me a real chance. With another huge haul of Ryder Cup qualifying points gathered up as well, McIntyre's seat on the European plane to Bethpage Park in September is all but booked. I thought after the United States Open it might be done, but I think it has been done now, he said. Report by Nick Roger.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q and Review and to tell your friends about our service